All right, welcome back to the show. So, Patrick, what do you do in life to help you find balance?
Well, for balance. What do I do in my life to find balance?
You know, like a balance of work and play and mental health and physical health, emotional health.
I like music. I like learning. I like reading. I like music, learning, and reading. And the other thing is recreation. Technically, that is recreation, but I mean like relaxation. So other than relaxing with reading or music, I like to sleep.
Absolutely. So for you, how does comedy and humor, how does that fit in with the rest of your life?
Well, it's uplifting, and it's something to crutch off of sometimes. And
Don't you know a joke about being uplifted?
like they say, laughter is the best medicine. And if laughter is the best medicine, wouldn't comedians be the best doctors?
I agree. Yeah, you taught me a joke. The elevator was really uplifting, but then it let me down.
Yes. So I don't trust the stairs because they're always up to something. Mm-hmm. And the first time I took the elevator, it was uplifting, but then it let me down. Correct. Exactly. That's exactly the case.
All right, so in your journey through this life cycle, if pride is kind of our first stumbling block, what's a recent experience you've had where you fell out of a state of balance due to pride?
For pride, I think a lot about things about with my pride. I think pride is a bad thing, even if it be a little pride or self-pride or whatever. I haven't grown up, but I'm a convert to the LDS faith, and I believe personally that pride is what you shouldn't be. You should be humble, like a little child, because I believe in Christ, and Jesus Christ taught his followers that if you want to enter the kingdom of heaven, or the highest kingdom of heaven, basically you have to be humble like a little child.
Absolutely. So in your journey, we're all human. We're all victims of pride. Have you had an experience recently or in the past years where maybe pride crept in and you started falling out of that state of balance?
Yeah, I think that a recent experience that you mean going into pride, right? A recent experience where I've become prideful. I think when I start thinking about myself and what I want to do and the things that I'm good at and how I might be, I'm better than at this than everyone, until you start realizing, well, you know what? And you see something happen with someone else or someone else do something, and you realize, well, they're a lot better. I never could have done that. And you start getting glimpses of how other people can do things that you never would have been able to do, or you couldn't, or without a lot of practice, and that you couldn't do at the moment. And I just try to think, well, gosh, I mean, I wasn't the best. I'm not even close to the best. And I think, well, maybe I'm going about this all wrong and the wrong attitude.
Absolutely. From a personal experience, so those of you who have been following the show, the first one we did back at the beginning of September, an amazing fingerstyle guitar player named Nick Johnson did a show here with me, and he's on a whole nother level musically than I am.
But did you say Nick Johnson or Dick Johnson?
That would be Nick Johnson.
Oh, okay.
Dick's his dad. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know. But
Richard?
But I'm sitting here in the audience watching him play, and I'm like, man, he is on a whole nother level. And then last week, he opened for a guitarist named Antoine Dufour, who is one of the top fingerstyle guitarists in the world. And he came right here to Provo, Utah. And it's just interesting gaining perspective on just people in a profession, people who are good at what they do. You know, I was sitting here watching Nick like, wow. And then Nick opened for the best guitar player in the world, and then he sat back in the audience and was like, wow. And so that's kind of a good way for us to, I think, check ourselves before we wreck ourselves, is to have a perspective, you know. Yeah, you might be the best guitar player in your town, but how about the town next to you? How about on the world stage? And even if you do somehow get to the top of that list of, you know, the best comedian or the best guitarist,
there's always going to be someone better.
There's always going to be someone better. Because, you know, none of us live forever. We eventually die, and people learn from past human history and they improve upon it. Yeah, we could go on a whole long tangent about that. But so for you, Patrick, you know.
Also, if you lose your skill, you might lose it.
Say that again?
If you don't use your skill and practice, you could possibly lose it.
Use it or you lose it, right?
Exactly.
Absolutely. All right, so that kind of covers pride a little bit. Patrick is full of one-liners, so I want to just hear a few more one-liners because that's just kind of how that's like the glue of our relationship as brothers. So,
where are we going to even start? We'll start with one line at a time. Well, we got an hour for this show, so I think, like last time. So I think that I don't know if you ever try to eat a clock. It's very time consuming. We got an hour for the show. I think we should try to. Well, I don't know. Okay, so have you ever heard? I already showed you those ones.
I know they're in there, Patrick.
I'm just thinking now that you ask me. Okay. So
there's something about a carpenter you once told me.
So we got the first carpenter, the new carpenter the experienced carpenter really nailed it, but then the new guy came and screwed everything up. I was asking my grandpa, what do you think about? We were driving one time, and we you know how when you drive down and you have a fork in the road. Well, I said, Grandpa, look, there's a Y in the road. You got to go right, or you got to go straight. So my grandpa goes, a Y? He goes, that's called a fork. And so I go, oh, okay. And my grandpa goes, no knife, no spoon, but a fork in the road. Next thing you know it, we're stopping and have a dinner, find a plate in the road, and we'll stop and have lunch on the road. And then I was thinking, as Grandpa, well, Grandpa, look at your stomach right now. We're both fat. I've gotten pretty fat. We're both fat. I bet your stomach looks like a leather bag. So he goes, well, and he goes, what does your stomach look like? And I go, well, I don't know. What does it look like, Grandpa? He goes, like a medicine ball without the medicine, huh? So, another question that that I was asking my grandpa before. So that was, oh yeah, we were talking about how we gotten fat and everything, right? And so he goes, we go to get lunch, and I got lunch, and then I said, and I was with this was a time I was visiting with my grandparents, and my grandma and grandpa were just got done eating, and about 30 to an hour later, I felt hungry again, and I go, Grandma, why don't we go get something else? Why don't we go get some fast food there and get like a shake or something? My grandma goes, oh, you just ate, Patrick. And my grandpa goes, you got to pack a lunch for on the way to lunch to get lunch.
All right, so from getting to know Patrick, you've talked a lot about your grandpa to me, just
hilarious,
in our own spare time. But how about you tell the audience a little bit more about, it sounds like he was one of your comedic mentors in a way.
Yes.
And you said you come from a very comical family, and that if anyone were to be in a restaurant with you and your family at the same time, it would be kind of crazy.
Yeah. My grandpa, my whole family is just hilarious. My mother, my grandmother, my Aunt Debbie, and my grandpa, when we all, and me and my cousin, and my two sisters especially, when we're all and I guess my new stepfather, when we're all at a table together, it gets crazy. It's funny. It's crazy and funny at the same time. It's crazy in a funny way. And so my grandma, my mother and my mother are pretty wise people. Like, they're very cunning with the way they speak. And so it's just we'll start talking about things, and especially in this kind of city, in Salt Lake, for example, there's a lot of upright people that are probably Mormon and everything. Well, my grandpa, for example, my whole family pretty much isn't like that. We were raised in California. I was raised in California. I pretty much grew up in California, almost all of us. And we're not those upright people that, like a lot of the people you find in Salt Lake. And we'll be sitting even in California, you'll be sitting at the table, and we'll be the center of the tension at the restaurant because we'll be laughing. We'll be joking and mocking certain things. Not mocking, but we're making jokes on everything. It's like the waiter will leave, and my sister will go, "Did you see that poof you had in the hair?" Or something like that. She'll make a lot of funny jokes, and it's hard to explain, but we'll just sit there, all be laughing really loud, and everyone's watching this. This one time we were at a place in Orange County, it's called the Wet Burrito, and it's just some of the things I remember. They serve this soup. It's like a mushroom soup, and the dishwater, it's just black. And so my sister and my mother call it dishwater soup. It looks like they took the dishwater and made the soup with it.
All right, that reminds me of a funny story. So, I used to work at a pizza shop, and there's like pretty much three main positions in the kitchen. There was the sheeter, and what the sheeter did was he flattened out the dough into sheets to, put the toppings on. Then you had a topper that topped the pizzas, and then you had a guy on the other side of the oven, I forget his name, the oven guy, that would slice up the pizza. So I'm the oven guy one day, and so, I'm not really seeing what's happening in the kitchen, but I'm just cutting up whatever pizzas come out. And this one pizza comes out, and it honestly looked like someone threw up on it. And so I look back to the kitchen, and I'm like, do you want to explain this pizza? And they called it the leftovers. And so essentially, after about an hour of making pizzas, the cutting board where they make all the pizzas on, it just gets caked with flour and cheese and sauce and like little bits of like olives and pepperonis. And what they did was that last pizza they put through the oven, they just got the sheet, put some sauce on it, and then they just scraped that whole cutting board on that pizza.
Just get a cardboard and.
Dude, we gotta start our own restaurant where we just like.
No, just get a cardboard, throw some pizza sauce on, or throw some ketchup on it and some cheese and then you squirt some what's the name of that squirt cheese?
Easy cheese.
No, like the what's it?
Bavarian cream.
No. I don't know the name of it, but my grandpa was telling me that.
Squirt cheese?
No, it's like it's cheese in a can and it's pretty gross.
Yeah, it's easy cheese.
No. Cheese. But it's you just squirt that cheese on there and serve it on a piece of cardboard.
Dude, it'd be a hit. Well, while you're looking up the name of that cheese, so getting back here on the life cycle.
It is called easy cheese.
It is called easy
but
cheese.
But there's another cheese brand of this. It's funny.
Velveeta?
No, it sounds funny. Because
Easy Squirt?
No, it's like a name of something.
Cream in a can?
No. I was asking Austin, would you ever eat a Bavarian cream hot dog?
No.
The cream in the donuts filled in a cooked hot dog. Just imagine the nasty taste of that.
Alrighty, Patrick. So we've talked a little bit about pride and how you think you can get really good at something and then you realize there's someone better, or you'll only last so long. And that can tend to put us into a state of like defeat and maybe being humbled a little bit. Yes.
I always laugh now when I laugh like that. I mean, I cough now. I never used to, but now I do. Yeah, aerosol cheese.
Aerosol cheese.
This sounds so gross, doesn't it?
So, when you find yourself in a state of humility from, being your pride being defeated, what is that experience like for you?
Happier. I feel good. I feel like I'm on a level with other people, or I can listen to people better. I learn better. When I'm walking around, everything's more colorful.
So I'm gonna pause right here. This is interesting hearing this coming. Well, not coming from you, but just hearing it. A lot of people, the experience of being humbled from that state of pride, it's, you say it brings you happiness, that your world's more colorful. And
it's Cheese Whiz.
That's what
that's what my grandpa.
Cheese Whiz. There it is.
You just take a cardboard and put a bunch of ketchup on it, put some pepperonis and squirt some Cheese Whiz on it. Cook it up and serve it to people.
Oh my gosh.
That's what my grandpa said.
Cheese Whiz. Oh god.
That's funny. Hey, what do you think about that, though? Take a piece of cardboard or take a big tortilla. It's the nastiest piece. A big tortilla. It's like the 7-Eleven pizzas. You take a big tortilla and squirt some ketchup on it and put some Cheese Whiz on it. Share it to me. 7-Eleven pizzas.
Welcome, friends. You guys can sit over here. It's kind of weird. Yeah. Got my buddy Taylor here and a beautiful young lady. What's up, man? Doing good. What's your name? Anastasia. Anastasia. Awesome. Austin. Nice to meet you. This is my friend
Patrick McFarland. Hello, Taylor. I was just telling Austin, for the third time, I was with my grandpa and we were talking about 7-Eleven pizzas and how disgusting they are, almost like Little Caesars pizzas, same thing. I was saying it's like you just take a piece of cardboard and squirt some ketchup on it, throw some pepperonis and squirt some cheese whiz all over it and serve it up. Yeah. That's enough of that. That's enough of the cheese whiz pizza. Okay. So and you know how when you go to the restaurant, right? Well, those waiters must be good mathematicians because they sure know their tables, huh? I once knew a guy whose left side was cut off. He's all right now. Have you ever heard of the guy who was hit in the head with a can of soda? Oh, well, he's lucky it was a soft drink.
All right, so this is Taylor and Anastasia's first time to the show. So it's actually being filmed. There's a little camera up there, and it's pretty cool. They broadcast it to all the hotel rooms. It's like the first channel or whatever on the TVs. Everyone could be watching or no one could be watching. So I just kind of go at it with that attitude.
Oh, my favorite show, Family Guy. Have you ever seen Peter Griffin laugh? You've never... It is so funny. I'm going to have to look it up. Do me a favor and plug it into that thing right there. Oh, yeah. I'm going to have to look it up and put it into the microphone so you can hear it. Should I do that? I can't really do it that well. I can't do it that well, though.
Usually, Patrick can do it spot on.
Not always, though. It's
so, where we're at in the show right now is we've talked about pride, what that means, and basically it's boastfulness, and that gets to our head and we become conceited. So that leads to conceitedness. And we've just gotten to humility, which is kind of sparked by a defeat of our pride and then an ego death. One second. And so Patrick was saying, I asked him, like, when he enters a state of humility, going from that state of pride to humility, what does that feel like? And you're saying you're happy.
Yeah, everything's more colorful. I listen better. I can teach. I can learn better. I feel on level with other people, if not more like a child.
Absolutely.
Everything's more bright and colorful. I'm happier.
What's interesting to me, hearing your perspective on humility, most people, humility, or like being humbled is humiliating. You know? Oh, like, I was the best. Yeah, embarrassed, kind of downtrodden and everything. So I'm putting myself in student mode right now. I want to hear more about how humility for you is this like happy experience where everything's more colorful.
Well, you got to remember what it says in LDS doctrine, which is the faith I'm in, is those who are truly humble will listen even to the smallest child.
What have you learned from small children?
Simplicity. Pure perception, I guess I could say too. And love.
I was walking around food court at this mall today, and they have a little play area, and I saw pretty much all of that in about 5 seconds, you know. Just love, and when you say pure perception, like what is your interpretation of what that means?
Pure perception, what I meant by that is little children, you know, they'll look at something and they won't have a gross interpretation of anything. They won't have a judgmental interpretation of anything. They won't look with a set of judgment eyes. They look at something and they think or imagine there's something happy out of it, or they think in a happy manner, a pleasing manner. And it's
I like that.
I like it too. Yeah, they're good children. They're little. They're pure. Now I think of if little children were alive in pre-existence before us, and they were just born into this earth, they're closer to the age of that little child or whatever. They're closer to just being born. They're closer to the time of pre-existence.
So, like, basically, young children are more pure in the sense that if they came, like, if they're a fresh creation of God.
Indoctrinated to the world's view.
Perfect. So, what do you do to get to that place of pure perception of, trying to not see things with judgmental eyes?
A lot of work to do that. First of all, you have to want to be humble. And a lot of people that are very prideful, if I were very prideful, I wouldn't just sit there and humble myself. And it's not I don't think of it as a matter of just simply letting go. I think it's more work than that. I think you have to, first of all, you have to be living a righteous lifestyle, not self-righteous, but righteous. And that, of course, what would be right in the eyes of God as best as you can. And you have to let go of those things, those thoughts like I'm better. Have no ego. You have to look at things and have charity for other people. And you have to let go of the pride and work because you can let go of the pride and become humble, and just as fast as you can become humble, you can work back up to the pride again. So you want to watch that, and you want to always focus on humility. Another thing is being free from sin through Christ's atonement, because it's hard to be humble. But it's a good thing, and that's the goal. That's what you should do. You should strive to do. You see what I'm saying?
Absolutely. So, something I want to ask you. So, you said what? Yeah, I can adjust that real quick.
This will be our test.
Mike Tyson once beat up his wife, but there's nothing funny about that.
You see that laugh? Okay, like it.
Mike Tyson once beat up his wife, but there's nothing funny about that.
Yep.
Isn't that just
The
an
mic
awesome
works.
laugh? Do you like that laugh now? I love that.
I
love that.
So, what's happening there? Okay. So you said, you recently converted to, or recently you're part of the LDS faith or a Mormon. For those who are listening that maybe aren't religious or have a different view of what God is.
It's general conference time. They might be extremists. I'm just kidding.
That is true. So let's say, if trying to understand this in their point of view, let's say some people who are very good at what they do, they're kind of just persistently prideful. And maybe
atheists are prideful in their explanations of falsity. Maybe not. It might not be true.
Well, so how would you say someone's in the thick of their ego and their pride? How would you convince someone that you shouldn't be there, but you should come to a state of humility? That seems like a huge downgrade to someone who's in a prideful state.
Right,
So, what would you say to them?
Well, I don't want to sit there and beat on them.
Right.
And it's something that sometimes people can't just be convinced. sometimes people have to be humbled. And I'll leave that to God to do that.
Absolutely. So, we've gone through that experience, right? So we've been prideful, we go through a state of humility, and now we've resurfaced. So we're now at F. So that stands for fragility, or being in a fragile state. And that's the beginning of strength. So the kind of the way I describe it, so in this illustration I use a mountain. Let's say, you were a star athlete, right? So you probably have a sense of pride. I'm a star athlete. Right. Let's say you're a quarterback, you get tackled, and your wrist gets broken. You get defeated. Or in our case, we were wrestling, and
Japanese jiu-jitsu.
he Japanese jiu-jitsu'd me onto the ground, sprained my wrist. My wrist has been pretty sprained for a few weeks. I'm a very active guy. I was defeated. I have a sense of ego death. I was like, man, I can't throw a frisbee like I used to, and I can't rock climb because my hand's all busted. I can barely play guitar. But in order to get back to a state of balance where I was at before, I have to re-strengthen what is now broken or weak or fragile. So in the illustration, he's a mountain because maybe you want to climb Everest. Most people who try to climb Everest, they don't make it up the first time, if they even make it out alive. They maybe get up to advanced base camp, and then they have to come back in a few years when they're stronger.
I always thought of that with outer darkness when you first saw your illustration, because that would be celestial. That's what I thought.
Oh, okay.
First you were explaining it, because it's probably really cold in outer space.
That is an awesome viewpoint. You can share that if you want.
Because I don't have a full explanation from every.
Awesome. So, for you, Patrick, when you're at the beginning of that journey of getting your strength back and you're fragile, what do you do to get that strength back?
You mean to get prideful again, or just to be strong?
No, not prideful, to get back to a balanced state.
Well, I think when you're humbled, you're pretty balanced. I mean, that's where you want to be. Now, there's different meanings of what you can refer to as humbled. But when I think of it, it's good to be humble, and you don't want to be any more than that. I think if you're humble and you're like a little child, and you're living all the commandments and being righteous, then you don't want any more than that, do you?
True, but if you look at how life works, we don't remain children forever, right?
Yeah.
So,
But you can be humble as one.
right. So as we grow, from child to adult, what are some things that change?
You grow more and learn more when you're humble.
Exactly. So, if we're to get back to that balanced state, which is, balance is a little bit of everything. It's a healthy bit of...
Moderation.
Yeah, it's moderation, right. So, to conquer the mountain, if you look at the thing up there, so G stands for a greater power. If we were to ultimately conquer any mountain in life, we might have to look at ourselves and be honest. I am a singular, fragile human being. No matter how awesome we think we are, someone drives 20 miles away from you, they can't even see you. How big are you then? If you want to conquer a mountain, like something like Everest, you can't do it alone. You have to rely on a greater power. And that greater power can manifest itself in a lot of different ways. For me, the ultimate greater power is God. I believe God is the source of truth and all goodness.
I agree.
But how greater power manifests, it can be through maybe a really good team of fellow climbers. For a lot of climbers who do Everest, their greater power might be the oxygen tank on their back. Oh, yeah. There you go. But what we can't forget is that as we progress and grow from children to adults and onward in life, we figuratively climb on the shoulders of giants. You know, any advances in science and technology are just that. They're advances. It is, you know, learning off of what our forefathers established, right?
Well, a couple of things that is you said we're climbing on just. I think about how this world is actually small compared to other worlds or planets. Or how the theory of being in a certain space, like if you go closer to the center of the universe, the gravity is much, much, much stronger. Let's say if you're on Earth, the gravity is a lot lighter. If you go to one of these areas of space where there's a planet, and you go on this planet, and the gravity is really strong, it'll be like it'll be so strong. Not only could you not hold yourself under there, but if you go to this planet, the gravity will be so strong that it sucks you to the ground of that planet, and it'll just be an ink spot, a red spot right there. That's how strong the gravity does in certain planets. Also, this little world, and you look at photos of those videos of the galaxy going backwards, you see how small these little stars get. And just think about it, how we're little on the Earth. The sun is little looking far away. We're really small. We're really nothing. I mean, compared to others, or God might be around our size physically, but resurrected and has all power, all knowledge, wisdom. You know what I'm saying?
What's cool for me to remember is, you know, we can get pretty down on ourselves and be like, wow, I'm literally a little bug on a rock in space. I'm this little nothing, you know. But I believe we're all connected, you know. I believe we're a big human family. And there's nothing worse in life than feeling like, you know, that old saying, feeling alone in a crowded room. That's like the furthest thing away from the truth, but at times it doesn't feel that way. We think the experiences we're going through, no one's going through what I've been through. No one's dealing with what I'm dealing with. And truthfully, maybe no one person has dealt exactly with what you dealt with. But there's a whole human family out there collectively who has experienced everything you've experienced, and maybe to an even worse degree. You know, look at our brothers and sisters who suffered in the Holocaust or in Africa every day. You know, are we still not part of like the human family? And so when we can remember that, to quote myself from one of my songs, there's strength in knowing the truth about ourselves. I know I'm weak, and therein lies the truth. But since I know I'm weak, therein lies my strength. I'm a fragile man made strong through God's hands. So it's the idea of infinity plus one. We're one, but we're plus infinity. You know, if we can get out of that lonely, selfish mindset that I'm on this earth by myself and I got to figure it out, and be like, open it up to everyone else. Hey, I'm kind of going through a hard thing right now. Do you have any advice on this? Sweet. You know, and I think that's the cool potential we have in this day and age with the internet. To me, the internet is basically the physical manifestation of, like, human consciousness. You know, it's, a lot of us, I don't know, from my own experience, I don't pray nearly as much as I used to because I can just be like, okay, Google, tell me this. You know, why do I need to get on my knees and pray to my maker when I can get on Google and, like, find the answers? You know, maybe that's his way of speaking to me. Maybe. I don't know. I still think it's important to have a relationship with the higher power. But that is the world we live in now. There's just kind of like this, the internet is just the big human form.
Hey, Austin.
You know?
Why don't we eat like, why do not we eat like Adam and Eve? And think of all these health problems and think, Okay, why do I have diabetes, and why do we have autistic people and schizophrenic people and gay people? But they didn't have as much of it back then. It's all in the food. Adam and Eve ate plants. And as a matter of fact, the reason there's a lot of gay people these days is because the parents aren't breastfeeding their children. And I wonder, why is my child gay? Well, why didn't you breastfeed him? God gave you those to breastfeed your children. But no, you want to give these artificial chemicals to a baby, which is causing the hormonal change and making them gay. Okay, diabetes, schizophrenia, it's all these. We don't need medication to live. We don't need medication. Diabetes can be reversed through a plant-based vegan diet. All these mental problems.
I'm going to pause you for a second because you're actually leading into the next section very well. The final section of balance.
Yeah. Well, all these mental problems can be managed by proper diet and exercise. We don't need all these things. I've studied it. So there's the food industry and there's the pharmaceutical industry. The government, it's a secret combination. The government's giving all these different chemicals in these foods and these different things and just tons of terrible stuff that we're eating that the body is not natural for the body. Neither our meds aren't natural either. I believe that every single illness, even diabetes and schizophrenia and cancer, every single thing out there that's an illness or a disease or whatever illness, God has a plant or put something on the earth to heal or cure or to treat. It would not be just for God to make all these little diseases and not put something to fix it. That's not balanced. That's not just. So yes, even for cancer, there's something called a SIAC T. If any of you have cancer or your family members have cancer, look up ESSIAC T. It's an herbal tea that will cure cancer. Why are we not funding these things? Because the pharmaceutical companies want to make money.
I want to ask you, Patrick, where did you learn all this?
Where did I?
All this information, all this
research, revelation, wisdom, I guess. You know, Austin.
Patrick.
Is it normal to put petroleum in your bodies? Do you think that man who have the problems, do you think psychology is just man trying to solve his own problems? Do you agree that Adam and Eve were much healthier? They lived way longer in Adam and Eve's time. But they also eat plant-based vegan diets, fruits and vegetables. They didn't
and even the quality of...
Why are we drinking milk, which is for breastfeeding other animals' children? We're not those animals, and our brains aren't the same. Our bodies aren't the same as these animals. We're mammals, but that's about as close as it gets.
So...
What do you mean we're not?
I'll get to it. So Patrick just laid down a bunch of information, a bunch of knowledge.
It's true, and if you apply it, you'll be healthier, and you will reverse diseases like cancer, diabetes. You won't have diabetes anymore. You won't have type 2 diabetes anymore if you eat a plant-based vegan diet.
All right, one second, Patrick.
You don't need meds.
So I wanna make all that relevant to this cycle, right? So what happens when we go through life? What happens when we research things? What happens when we,
Ever heard of the pineal gland? And
one second. So what happens is we learn stuff, right? He's obviously learned a lot of stuff. We live in the information age. We've never had access to so much knowledge ever. But I think what's frustrating is sorting out, how much of it's legit, how much of it isn't. I think a lot of it is. And because a lot of it is, I think that's actually one of the most frustrating things. And what I mean by that is, so once we make it through this journey of climbing the mountain, and we learn things as we climb the mountain, we get back down to the valley, we're now back in the top quadrant of this cycle. And so the sharps and flats, the black and white, in music there's sharps and flats. In life, there's sharps and flats. Hiking a mountain, there's sharps and flats. There's going to be hard times and easy times. There's night and day. There's black and white. There's a better way to live and a worse way to live. And so all that basically constitutes knowledge. But like, you know, what use is a bunch of knowledge if we aren't, if we aren't accountable? So that's where balance comes from, is we gain knowledge, but we're then accountable to what we know. For me personally, because I have access to so much knowledge, so much information, there's like this deep uneasiness in me, and it's the accountability factor. You know, I know how to eat a healthy diet. I know how to work out. I know how to get enough sleep. I know how to practice my guitar, but am I doing it? You know? And like,
it's one thing there's these stupid self-help books that say, if you can put anything you put your mind to, or if there's a will, there's a way, or all things are possible through practice. The truth is, the saying, you can only go so far. If one doesn't have the talent to do something, one can practice painting for 10 years and be a professional paint artist. One can practice painting for a lifetime and still suck at it. It only can go so far. Practice and practice and practice, but if you don't have the talent, it's not going to work so well.
I'm glad you brought that up. And that's kind of another predicament. Not a predicament. Part of the journey of life is, and that's what Balance Through Art's all about. You know, it's kind of like the hashtag for Balance Through Art is, what's your art? So every one of us came to this earth to find something we enjoy and to do it. Or to find a lot of things we enjoy and to do those things. You know, I believe God has given us certain gifts or certain inclinations or things that we find interest in. You know, look at anyone who's become a doctor. You know, I don't think you just become a doctor through a lot of hard work, because my best friend is going through med school right now, and he is a fanatic about medicine.
Everything that the doctor tells you is controlled by the education and what the pharmaceutical tells them to say.
Maybe
there's certain things that doctors can tell you, like recommend a herbal thing, and they can get fired.
Well, that wasn't my point at all, but we'll roll with it. So. But what I was getting at, Patrick, that wasn't the point. But what I was getting at is, my friend would not still be in med school if he didn't love it. You know, someone wouldn't be a great salesman for 30 years if they weren't, you know, had some natural inclination to being a people person or, you know, pushing a product. So I'm glad Patrick brought that up, and that's kind of the fun part in life is, a lot of us when we're kids, we kind of do start kind of figuring out quick, like, man, I really love this or love that. You know, a lot of us, when I was a kid, you know, I wanted to be a Air Force pilot or an astronaut or a firefighter. And, you know, a lot of that is influenced by what we see in our fellow best friends who want to be firefighters. But usually by the time, you know, we've hit high school, college, we kind of start figuring out, like, you know, this is something I love. And from my experience, you know, for me that was the guitar. Like, I'm kind of a jack of all trades, master of none, but guitar and music is the one thing that's stuck with me for the past 12 years. And even when I kind of stopped loving it or, you know, practicing or giving my time to it, it would kind of keep popping back up. So finally I was like, you know what, maybe I should cultivate this. And it was amazing just the return on the investment I got as I started putting more time into this gift that I had. It's like practicing, it didn't feel like practice, it was just fun. I could sit in my room and play guitar for hours. then it got to the point where I could sit and play guitar for hours on the street, and instead of doing it in my room and playing for nobody and making no money, I just sit on a street corner, and yeah, maybe I make $8 in a couple hours, but it's like, I got $8 doing something I love anyway.
Hey, have you ever heard of the saying, there's like a less way, very, very, like, unknown about, or less known or less paid attention to doctrine that says, that which you hear in darkness, or that shall you speak in the light. Whatever you hear in the darkness, or you see in the darkness, you shall bring to light, or speak in the light. What do you think about that?
The first song I ever wrote was called Darkness to Light, and that made me think of that. Like most high schoolers, I went through some dark times, and instead of getting too down on myself, I decided to write about what I was going through, and next thing I know, these journal entries became poetic, turned into lyrics, and became a song. And so kind of what I heard in the dark, I now play for people, and it kind of sheds light on those dark times. And
no, that's another way of no. That what you see or hear in the darkness, you shall be brought to light. You shall bring to light.
So
It's different than lightening others. Well, one of the things I think of it as, of the many, is one of the main things is when you hear a secret or you hear knowledge that isn't known about, like the cure for cancer, that shall you bring to light. So you make people known.
Like an epiphany kind of thing?
If you hear the cure for cancer, then you go and broadcast it to the general public that should know. Like WikiLeaks. That what you hear in dark. Like you make secrets known, basically.
Gotcha.
That's an epiphany. Probably not what I was saying, huh?
All right. What does that mean?
What is it?
Oh, an epiphany. Yeah, an epiphany is like an aha moment. Just going off what you're saying, what you hear in the dark or see in the dark, you bring to light. I don't know. People who write, people who paint, they're staring at a blank canvas. They're like, I know I want to make something, but I don't know what. Epiphany moment. You know, something comes to your mind. Where does that come from? You know, a lot of artists I've talked to talk about there's this universal pool of inspiration. And the only way we tap into that as artists or human beings is through practicing our craft, through practicing our art. You know, I don't know how many times, like prayer, for instance. Like, I'm not probably going to get that epiphany from God if I need some sort of direction in my life.
Definition of the word epiphany.
If I'm sitting and watching, like, some grody movie, you know. If I've made some space for Him, I'm on my knees somewhere, maybe in the dark, maybe on a mountain, then that epiphany is probably going to show up.
Okay, you know how when
you're not going to make a sale if you're not out knocking doors or if you're at your job, you know. It's like, it's just common sense.
Another idea of bringing the darkness to light. You know when sometimes you talk to people and they'll whisper something under their breath and you hear it, but they don't realize what they said? Repeat that to them. So when someone says something and they don't realize it, repeat it to bring it to light. Or another way is to make the secrets known or make the unknown known. That's what I meant. Not lightening others' motions with music. You see what I'm saying now?
I think we're both talking about the same thing. We're just catching different parts of it. All right, so the final, I guess, symbology of this whole cycle is the guy in the green is just supposed to be a human figure standing with his arms in the air, basically in an open stance. There's this movie with Jim Carrey called Yes Man. Don't know if you've ever seen it. It's kind of a goofy movie. It's Jim Carrey, but it's a great message. And the end message is you have to be open to life. Anything that comes your way. Like, if good comes your way, open up, you know? If bad comes your way, like, don't turn your back to it and plug your ears and, like, rock yourself in a corner. Like, it's still going to be there. You have to, like, bring it on, you know? Don't, like, accept it into your life, like, oh, this is a good thing that's happened to me. No, like, you have to just at least acknowledge, like, this is happening and take care of it. So, we need to be open to life and experiences, and, like, anything, especially when bad things happen, I try from the beginning to ask, what can I learn from this? What is the lesson here? Because then it turns a negative into a positive. And then, it's kind of cool if you can imagine this thing upside down. So where the little fish is, right above that little green thing, that is now the head of a sea turtle. And the little wheel in the middle is his shell. And the little green things are his fins, and that's his tail up there. So even if we've fallen out of a state of balance and we're facing downward, going to the depths of humility, if we can remember to dive. So I grew up with Mormon and Christian kind of, Christian beliefs. So the fish, it resembles a Jesus fish. And whether you're religious or not, what you have to accept is if you've hit rock bottom and you're in the bottom of a well and the sides are slippery and there's no way out, you need a savior. You need someone who's above ground that can lower a rope to you and pull you out. Whether you believe that's God or Jesus, like, I get it if you don't like that or whatever. But what you have to admit is we all get into places where we need a hand.
Satan will only bring you down.
Right.
Satanism is false for those of you that might think in that direction.
Absolutely. So when we're facing those dark times, if we can remember to kind of be like a sea turtle and dive after the Savior or a saving hand,
Satanism is not just... So Satan is not just in Christianity. Buddhist has a devil in there. Probably Buddhist gods is probably evil one, and that's the Satan. And what was it? Greek? Was it? What was the one that has
Hades?
Hades. That's the Satan in them.
Right.
There's Hindu gods, and they all have their own version of a devil.
Mm-hmm.
And the devil's no good. He can do you no good.
Right.
So repent, Satanists.
There, a lot of people say there's no such thing as right or wrong. Everything's just an experience. If the goal in life is to live, then there starts to become some very clear right and wrongs. Like, putting a gun to your head and pulling the trigger is not going to help you live, no matter how much you think about think contrary. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we kind of wrap it up here, but the last thing I like to talk about is, okay, this is just more knowledge, this is just more information. Is this just going to make our consciences that much more guilty, because now I got that much more crap to be accountable to? Nothing here we've talked about is new. It's just a spin-off of old information. But kind of my starting point for healthy living, and you can take spirituality completely out of the picture if that's not for you. We're all human beings. And I think the basic goal is to be alive. To survive, at least. So, like, what do we need to survive? We need water, food, shelter, air. I think that's pretty much it. Maybe a couple other things. Pooping. So what goes in must go out. So I spent a lot of time in nature, and I had a really interesting kind of epiphany or revelation. I'm climbing this cliff one day. Free climbing like an idiot. And I start losing my footing, and there's a scrubby oak brush just coming out of the rock. I grab onto it, and I'm like, that's solid, And I've used these many times. They're my helpers. But this time I'm like looking at it, and I'm just like, good on you, man. Like, you're literally growing out of a rock. Like, what do your roots look like? Like, nothing wants to live more than this scrub oak in the desert right now. And then I looked at my own life, and I'm like, what am I doing? Like, you don't see scrub oaks climbing up the side of skyscrapers like, yeah, bro. Like, and so the moment was, everything in nature is doing its darndest to live. You know, you'll see a half-dead tree, but the part of it that is alive, it is trying so hard to live. It's sinking its roots in deeper, looking for water. All the little animals out there are just spending all day scurrying around trying to find food because they want to live. Then you look at people. You got people filling up the bars, filling their bodies with alcohol, which is poison. You know, shooting up drugs, being addicted to things. And it's just insanity. And then what's even more crazy to me is everything we see out in nature doesn't have 1,000th of the brain that we have. And maybe that's why it does so well. It doesn't really have an option. It's just live or die. Us is now like, how do I want to live? You know, or not. And so the starting point is like, we're all human, and most of us at least want to live. So there's these basic things we need: food, water, shelter. Even those of us who live in America who have access to all those things, the next kind of like upgrade is, what is the quality of these things? You know, am I drinking good water? Am I eating good food? Am I getting enough sleep? And then it just keeps stacking on top of that. I need reverse osmosis water, and I need to go to Whole Foods and get really expensive food. But you start to become more aware that, like, I am a living vessel. But even our own lives, like, aren't even ours, though. You know, it's like, I can't just sit here and tell my heart, stop beating. It keeps beating, you know. I can't tell my brain, stop thinking. Well, you can meditate, but, like, you're thinking to meditate still. You know, and it's just, and that's, like, kind of brings me to the next point where spirituality kind of enters the picture is, for me, when I start meeting all my basic needs, and I kind of use this acronym called DES. First is diet. I try to eat as best as possible for my lifestyle. Next is exercising. When I'm eating right, I actually have the energy to exercise. When I'm eating right and exercising, I sleep well at night. I've expended my energy throughout the day. And then once I've invested in myself with diet, exercise, and sleep, then once I've invested in myself, I'm like a cup. And if you fully invest in a cup with water, once it's fully full, it will start to overflow. That overflow is what we can give to others. You know, it's bad to give of your canteen if you're not even full yourself. You're going to suffer, you know. So we do have to be selfish in the basic survival sense. But what I found is when I'm, you know, physically invested in myself, I can't help but feel that there's more to life than what I see. That there's this spiritual energy. You know, I'm working on a song right now, and there's one of the verses is, it's funny how quick we forget. From the dust we came, and to the dust we get. But what makes the dust come alive? Are we the result of some atoms who strived? How can things that make sense come from a senseless process? That doesn't make any sense. Can you make any sense of this dense cacophony of words coming from my mouth? Can you sense my sensible reason for doubt? What makes, you know, we are made up of pretty much inorganic matter. Atoms. But what makes those conscious? What makes those decide, I'm going to organize myself into a heart, into a leg? Intelligence, you know? there's something bigger out there that knows what's going on. And when we realize we're a part of that, the whole fragile greater power relationship, 1 plus infinity, life just gets crazy. It's like a movie. It's like, yes, man. But it's a process. If we're not even taking care of ourselves, none of that spiritual stuff's even going to register. So you at least got to start there. Diet, exercise, sleep, and service. What's one thing I can change today to eat healthier? And then once we've invested in that and we start feeling that there's more to life than what we see, maybe, God's plan for you or your gift for humanity will become apparent to you. And then your life's mission, the way I like to say it, don't ask the world what it needs of you, but rather ask yourself what makes me come alive. Because what the world needs is people who are alive. Yeah, you might see a need for doctors. Well, I guess I'll be a doctor because I'll get paid. You're going to hate your life. You might find a way to love it. And then maybe in that journey you find out, oh, I am supposed to be a doctor. But that's what I've been doing. I've been asking myself, what makes me come alive? And more importantly, what's something that you do that brings you an immense amount of joy? And then when you're doing that around other people, it brings them an immense amount of joy. That is your gift. Do that. Ask yourself that question. So yeah, that is the Balance Through Art show today. Patrick, did you have any final words to drop on the audience?